Hello and welcome to a demonstration of MaaS360. My name is Will Scott. I'm an account executive here with IBM MaaS360, and I'm just going to walk you through the portal of MaaS360, show you how mobile device management through the lens of IBM can assist you with some of the day-to-day issues you might be experiencing with your devices out in the field, being used by different employees, different departments, all with different content on those devices. So whether it comes down to security, data concerns as it relates to overages, productivity within your workforce, making sure people are using these devices the way they are intended to. There are a lot of different things that you'll be able to do, including enabling your devices. So things like pushing out Wi-Fi settings, email settings, right from this centrally located portal. So, just want to give you that high-level overview of what mobile device management is. Mobile device management has actually evolved into something called UEM. So from MDM to UEM, UEM is Unified Endpoint Management, which allows you to manage not only your tablets and your smartphones, but also your laptops and your desktops. So MaaS360 has that capability, and we're also what we call device agnostic. So we'll be able to help you manage your Android, your Apple, and your Windows devices. So with that said, I'm going to walk through the portal here just as a general overview. And you can certainly follow up with me by, with questions by email or phone. My email is william.scott@ibm.com. Just jumping in here, as a way to give you a sense of the portal layout, there are a number of drop-downs here as a way to navigate different sections of the portal and access different features that you'd like to control. And this first page, this home page of MaaS360, is really meant to be a snapshot of your mobile environment, particularly this Alert Center here. The Alert Center is going to be a quick dashboard that you'll have access to, indicating what's going right and what's going wrong within your environment. So as you might imagine, the red tiles are showing you things that need your attention. Green are showing categories of information that are running. And the blue tiles are showing just a straightforward device count of a particular category. So for instance here, there are 11 Android devices. As it relates to these green and red tiles, really the way these are toggling green and red is based on policies that you create. Those policies govern your devices, basically a rule set that indicates to the device what it can and can't do. And so as devices fall in and out of compliance with those policies, you'll see these tiles toggle green or red. So for instance here, there are 13 malware detected devices. That's obviously a bad thing. We can click into this tile, see which devices have been affected, and take action on them. And then here, just an example of a green tile here. This is showing that 0 of your devices have removed a passcode. And that's just insinuating that this portal, they want their users to have a passcode as a measure of security. If the end user were to remove that, this tile would turn from green to red. You can customize the information that is surfaced in this portal or in this dashboard. You'll also be able to drag and drop these tiles. Below that is My Advisor with Watson. Watson is a tool that IBM has created, basically artificial intelligence, a supercomputer that learns over time. And Watson, in this case, is deployed to scour the internet and other information resources for the latest trends in malware. Watson will then compare those trends in malware to the types of devices you have enrolled in the portal, and it will surface any relevant risks to your device here in the My Advisor section of the portal. So this is a great way to proactively understand how your devices have been susceptible to malware out there, and something to keep an eye on just to avoid any damages. You can subscribe to these alerts, so you don't have to log in every day concerned there's a new threat. We can email those risks and these alerts right to your inbox. Then finally on this first page, I just wanted to cover my activity feed. This is an audit trail of each action that's been taken within the portal. So if you have multiple admins that will be assisting you, the admin, to create new policies, add new devices to the portal, this is a great place to glance at right when you log in. And it's important to note you can have as many admins as you'd like, and those admins can have different permission levels. So if you want an admin to only be able to edit certain features or devices, that's certainly something you can accomplish. Headed to devices, I'll click on inventory, and here we'll have a list view of all the devices in your environment. As you can see, we're managing Android, Apple, and Windows devices. And so I'll just click into an Apple device as an example. Here we'll have a summary of information. Things like the device ID, the model, the operating system, and the user associated with that device. We can drill down a bit further. We can actually see the battery level of this device since it last checked in, and the internal storage remaining on that device. You'll also always have insight into what applications are on any given device. Now, while you may see a lot of different applications here, keep in mind that you'll be able to restrict proactively the applications that your end users are allowed to install. If data concerns did become a concern with a particular user and you found Netflix on their list, maybe you want to start restricting Netflix to avoid data overages. Some other things you can do from the device level is message this device. So if it's lost or stolen, we can easily send a message to that device. Maybe we're adding an address or a phone number where that device can be returned. This can also be used as a communication method to your end user. So maybe there's an emergency that you need to communicate quickly, or a weather advisory. You can message a single user, or you can message groups of users for more of a mass message feel. We'll also be able to lock these devices if they're lost or stolen. We can reset the passcode if the end user forgets it, and we can also wipe this device should it be lost, stolen, or the end user gets fired. This way we can avoid any data leakages, anyone from taking company information with them, etc. This is also how we'll provision a old device for a new user, so we can easily do that and avoid any headaches in that process. One other thing that we offer is an integration with a software called TeamViewer. TeamViewer is a remote support software that allows you to remote into your employees' devices and essentially help them troubleshoot anything that they're having an issue with on their device. So for Apple devices, this is more of a screen share where you're able to chat and talk your end user through what they're having an issue with while seeing their screen. With Android and Windows devices, this is a feature that you can actually take over their device remotely and push the buttons that they're seeing on the screen. This is one of our a la carte items, and is something that you can let me know if you're interested in. It's a $1 add-on per device per month, and that can be added to any of our bundles. I'm going to jump to policies. Policies are really what govern these devices, indicate to the device what it can and can't do. And it's important to note that a policy can be applied to a single device, a group of devices, or all devices. So keep that in mind as you think about managing different groups of employees with different policies. I'll jump into an iOS policy here, and we can begin to control the features and edit different things that will be accessible on these devices. So I'll click Edit, and we'll begin to configure, let's say, enforcing a passcode, just as a measure of security. We can choose the minimum number of digits associated with that passcode as a measure of security. You can also choose the number of minutes between that device auto-locking and needing a passcode re-entry. Under restrictions, you'll have access to a ton of different settings. I'll highlight a few. You can actually allow or disallow the installation of applications for your end users. So if you wanted to lock the device down to 5 or 10 apps that they need to do their job and not allow the end user to install other recreational apps or personal applications, you can certainly do that by disabling this feature. You can also enable or disable the use of the camera, FaceTime, screen capture, Siri, Touch ID, and Face ID. I won't go through all of these. There are a ton of different settings here, but a lot of these you probably won't touch. One thing that is definitely beneficial is our support. So we do have a customer engineering team that will walk you through creating policies and helping you learn the portal. And for accounts that are 50 or more devices, that is a complimentary service. For accounts under 50 licenses, that would be a $500 setup fee. If that's something you'd like to learn a little bit more about, let me know. Happy to elaborate. Some other things that we'll be able to configure in the portal here are Wi-Fi settings. So if you have multiple office locations and you're sick of handing out the password to that, perhaps the password changes on occasion, you can add all of your Wi-Fi networks that you have. The devices will auto-join, meaning they will immediately connect to Wi-Fi once they're within range. That way they're off of your cellular network and less likely to become a data concern. Here in supervised settings, these are some settings that you'll have access to if you use an enrollment program offered by Apple called Apple Business Manager. Android devices have a similar program called Android Enterprise. These programs are both free and pretty necessary to manage the devices the way 90% of our clients would like to. And just to kind of elaborate on Apple Business Manager, it's a way to flag your devices as corporate owned. Many of you may have run into an end user putting in their own Apple ID onto the device, and that end user quits or gets fired, and they don't necessarily want to give you their Apple ID password. And we've seen Apple take up to 3 months to remediate issues for companies and make you jump through hoops to prove ownership of a device. So basically, how we prove ownership going forward, a more formal way to do so would be Apple Business Manager. Again, a free program that basically houses the serial numbers of your devices, indicating that all of your devices are owned by your company, and that way you have ultimate control. And basically, by enrolling in Apple Business Manager or Android Enterprise, those programs give MaaS360 or any MDM permission to manage your device in a corporate sense. So it gives MaaS360 about 80 or 90 additional settings that we can manage, some of which we'll be walking through here in the supervised settings. So we mentioned activation lock, when the end user puts in their own Apple ID and you end up locked out of the device, bricked with a $600 device potentially not doing anything for you. As long as your devices are enrolled in Apple Business Manager and activation lock is unchecked, you'll never be locked out of another device again. All of our policies come with activation lock disabled by default because it is such a pain in the neck. Some other things you'll be able to do is push out home and lock settings. So if you want a more uniform look across your devices, maybe a company logo instead of a customized background by an employee, we can push out those settings. Application compliance will allow you to restrict or enforce certain applications. So the whitelist will offer you the ability to enforce applications. This is a list of apps that you want on the device, and if it's not listed here, it can't be installed. Since we're integrated with the App Store, all you have to do is type in the application name and choose the icon. The blacklist is a list of apps that you want to restrict. If it's listed here, it can't be installed. So maybe it's things like Netflix, and Hulu, maybe Pandora, Spotify, all those applications that are going to be streaming and consuming a lot of data. So this is one large way of avoiding data overages, restricting the types of applications that are accessible. One thing Apple devices allow you to do that Androids do not is force applications to Wi-Fi only. So if you don't mind if your users have Netflix on their device, you just don't want them chewing up your cellular data, here we can block certain apps from using cellular data. So that means if we list Netflix here, Netflix can only stream when the device is connected to a Wi-Fi network. That's a good workaround and something maybe your employees might appreciate. Just moving along here, keeping the blacklist and the whitelist in mind. Oftentimes the end user is savvy enough that if you're going to block Netflix the application, the end user is just going to jump over to the browser, log into Netflix, and begin streaming those services through the browser. So what MaaS360 did was create its own secure browser. And it is our browser application that allows you to control content or filter content by category. So here we have a list of 64 categories of websites ranging from streaming and social media to inappropriate or even illegal content that you wouldn't want access on a corporate device. And we would list out those categories right here. Then we can choose to block these websites, block and track to see who's trying to access them, or allow and track. So this is a great way to avoid the workaround for your employees to start streaming and chewing up a lot of your cellular data. This is crucial to avoiding data overages and making sure people are accessing and using the device for appropriate reasons. There's some liability as it relates to content access on a corporate device. With that said, we can also push out email settings from the portal. So if you use Exchange, Office 365, Gmail, or perhaps you use an IMAP or a POP server, you'll be able to push out these email settings centrally from the portal. This would cut down a lot on deployment time that you may be experiencing punching this information each on individual device. I'll jump to apps, and this is the catalog of applications that you'll have access to, and you can push out applications right from the portal. So let's say you loaded these devices with 5 apps that they need to do their job. A month from now, they need an extra app. You can easily come into here, choose the application, distribute that app to a specific device, a group of devices, or all your devices, and have that application instantly install. So there'd be no end user interaction. That application would simply install automatically. You can also use MaaS360 as a content repository. So if you have documents or forms that you need to push out, you can do that from MaaS360. Simply upload them into the portal. You can choose a date and a time for those documents to appear on a specific device or a group of devices. You can also revoke that device at a certain date and time. If you have an existing content repository or maybe several, you can tie into those systems right through the portal, so that way you can use MaaS360 as the distribution portal and have multiple repositories feeding into MaaS360. As it relates to data consumption, we can create basically a virtual data plan. And so here, let's say we don't, the first day of your billing cycle is the 3rd. You don't want anyone using more than 5 gigs in a given month. We would save and publish this policy. We'll set up threats to alert both you, the admin, and the end user as they approach certain thresholds, and be able to take action if they do get close to the allotted data that we've given them for the month. So under expense monitoring rules, we'll set these rules up. Let's say anyone who hits 50% of the 5 gigs we've given them will receive an alert. That alert will come by email and or push notification. The admin can be notified, and that alert is triggered with a custom message. Maybe it says, hey, Susie, you've reached 50% of your monthly data. Then let's say at 90%, Susie gets a more strongly worded message triggered. Your manager's been notified. At that point, we can also trigger a policy change. So we're likely going to be placing a more restrictive policy onto Susie's device, maybe restricting additional applications and websites, so that Susie doesn't have the tools on her device to exceed the amount of data we've given her. So this doesn't necessarily turn off the data. This is more of a speed limit sign where you can actually take an action if they do approach that data by taking tools away from them. But it's a good tool to give some insight to both the end user and the admin. Sometimes the end user doesn't realize they've left an application open and running in the background. Last thing I wanted to cover is just the reports you'll have access to. These reports can be subscribed to and customized, and they range pretty widely from application inventory, data usage analysis, browser violations. It ranges, and you can certainly customize these and filter them. I'm sure you all have some questions as it relates to MaaS360 and your specific use cases, I'm happy to answer those. Again, you can follow up by email. Pricing would be best to get through your telecom provider. So, certainly work with me and whoever your rep is on that side. But really appreciate your time today, and hope to be speaking with you soon. Thanks.